No, maybe dozens.
Okay,
I don't.
so we are on live with the Godless Cranium. He finally has appeared on my channel after much hemming and hawing and much ducking and dodging. The man we have today, you may have heard of Matt Dillahunty, Sam Harris. Those are yesterday's atheists. Those are atheists in the rearview mirror. Today we have the young, hungry, up and coming atheist of tomorrow, the leader of the atheists, the Godless Cranium.
How are you?
You want to introduce yourself? Let me kill my mic and maybe kill my picture. Go ahead, introduce yourself.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm Godless Cranium. I run a YouTube channel. Previously a blog, discussing mostly religion and atheism. I work in social services with the deafblind. Just regular person, not a leader of any atheist movement. Just like
Well,
making YouTube.
not yet, not yet. Don't sell yourself short.
It's like making YouTube videos, which I haven't done in a while, but a couple weeks.
How long have you been making YouTube videos actually? Because I'll tell you what happened. I was watching Drew's. Did you watch Drew's video from yesterday?
No.
Okay. Drew, if you watch this, he hasn't watched your video yet. I have. It threw me. By the way, just a quick announcement. Drew will be appearing on this show on Monday at 2:30 California time. So as if the Godless Cranium isn't enough, that's not enough atheism for 1 month. We've got
you get the big cheese.
We even got the bigger atheist.
Yeah, you got the bigger cheese.
The competition, the sibling rivalry between these two is like off the charts. Now, what threw me when I listened to his videos, he's only been an atheist for 2 years.
Yeah, I've been an atheist.
How is that possible? I consider him like Mr. Atheist. That was like, my head exploded when I heard that. Because
really?
I consider, well, how long have you been an atheist for? Let's start with that.
Many years. I don't know, actually. I'm not sure when I was like, hey, I'm an atheist. I kind of went through the same metamorphosis that probably a lot of atheists do when they go from religious to, I'm not sure if I agree with Christianity anymore, so I'll start looking into other faiths and then realize that they're pretty much the same. And
so you had a whole deconversion process. It wasn't just like, it was longer than 2 years probably, just from questioning to...
Yeah, because it took a long time for me to admit that I was an atheist. Like I went from there, I kind of went to, the same, maybe there's something to spirituality, and then I realized that, beside, depending on how you define spirituality, but when I'm saying spirituality, I mean like supernatural stuff, kind of spirituality when it's defined like that.
Right. Are you like not on that page at all? Like there's no supernatural reality at all?
Yeah.
So you're
exactly.
like, okay.
I don't think there's anything supernatural.
Now, do you consider yourself the best atheist? No, I'm joking. Okay. So I think when you were telling us, you were on with Stephanie, and I tried to start learning about when you deconverted. Mm-hmm. Was it high school when you actually did it, or were you deconverted by the time you were 20? Or was it in your 20s? I didn't get really a sense of...
probably in my 20s. I can't really pinpoint an exact, like I said, I can't really pinpoint an exact moment or time when I just, like, I know, like, even as a small child, I had doubts. Like I had questions,
really?
or maybe not even doubts, questions that were never
about God's existence, or about the teachings of the church, or what?
Yeah, more about the teachings of the church, like the stories in the Bible that they were telling me were true didn't ring true, like, right? Yeah.
And did you bring your questions up at what, like Sunday school or something? And everyone's like, shut up.
Yes. I actually got kicked out of Sunday school. So.
Did you really?
Yeah. By the Sunday school teacher, I still remember, was Mrs. Armour was her name. And she politely told my parents that I would have to stay up in the pews with them when Sunday school started because I was disruptive to the other children, which I kind of
that's
meant
really interesting because you were
too many questions.
because you were already starting to ask questions like, why did they kill the Midianites? Is that what you were saying?
No,
Is there any evidence for a global flood? What were the questions?
No,
That's hilarious.
it was the global flood was one of them. Also, the flood was a big one because, like what they would say, like they had to load the animals onto the 2x2, and then I started because I started reading National Geographic, which ironically my dad got me. And so I knew like some things like like animals.
So you were reading it to see the topless Africans. That was like the big thing.
No, I was much too young. I was much too young for that. But it was like more like things like kangaroos weren't in the Middle East. So how did they get the kangaroos, right? Did Noah just like sail over to Australia and get the kangaroos and then go back?
So
and then
this occurred to you at a young age? Like you started thinking like that doesn't sound plausible, and the teacher must have been annoyed. Yes. She got totally tripped out.
Yeah, she would just say, well, you just have to have faith, or God works in mysterious ways. The normal platitudes.
In other words, shut up.
Yeah, in other words, shut up.
You're blowing it for all the other kids.
Exactly, and then you'll
be an atheist one day if you don't watch out.
Yeah, and I'm very stubborn as a person, like even now, and probably more stubborn then. So, when people gave me unsatisfactory answers, I would just keep going. My mom would tell you stories about how she would just go, I would say why, and then she would say something. I'd be like, well, why is that? And then like a running joke in my family is that they always thought I should be a lawyer because I'm good at arguing my points when I believe in something. So
yeah, I could actually see that just from what you do now. I mean, okay. Before I want to go into this, I want to go into the deconversion part more, but I also want to skip ahead too, because you get flack. There's two personas of you so far in your professional atheism. You do your interviews where you got Shannon. When did you start with Shannon?
I think it's been a few months anyways. I can look up my calendar, but
did you do interviews without her, where you did like one-on-ones like what I'm doing?
No, I always did it with her. We started in February.
Right, because her personality leads she's on your videos. You're more like not aggressive, but you're more. You take somebody and you'll tear apart their video and say this and that about it. It's more. It's not combative necessarily. That's what I was getting at when I made that video.
Yeah,
and I said that you were. But
I'm more assertive than Shannon as far as like. I think Shannon and I share the same philosophy as far as conversations, but outside, like, I consider like I don't know, it's hard to explain. Like I consider like YouTube response videos conversations, but at the same time, it's not a two-way conversation at that point, right? So, if somebody was to make a response video back, then that would be fine. Like I try to watch those when I find them. If I can.
I haven't seen any. Are there any out there? Let me know.
Yeah. There are.
I haven't seen any.
I've responded to a few that responded back to me.
I saw back and forth, I think, with Missing the Mark and maybe Deconverted Man. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
Yep, that's true. Yeah, Deconverted Man did one about Jordan Peterson not being. I made one about Jordan Peterson being a Christian apologist, and then he said he wasn't a Christian apologist. And then I.
Yes, I've watched that one. Actually, I want to get into that in a minute because there's some really good. By the way, he replaced you yesterday.
Oh,
well, I'm glad. He showed up in your honor, and
lucky when I woke up this morning, there was no power in my house, so I almost wasn't able to make it again. I was like, no.
Oh God! I at the end of the conversation yesterday, it was actually funny because originally I was theorizing that you don't exist. Because I couldn't get you on the show. I was saying that you were either Kyle or a whole bunch of the other atheists were just using your avatar, and that voice was like. But then we we thought, did you ever see Fight Club?
Yeah.
Then I thought at the end, right at the end of the video, him and I start joking around that maybe it's Fight Club. Maybe you're my alter ego. And like you don't exist because I couldn't get you on the show.
Yeah.
So now I'm pretty sure that you exist. And I'm not having a conversation with myself. Matter of fact, I saw another movie with that same premise last night. Tully. Not very good. But anyways, all right. So Shannon's personality is very like genial, conversational. I've never seen her even get into fights, or I've seen her get a little bit slightly combative twice. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking, like, your personality, you have two sides of your persona. Like when you're in conversation with people, you're actually pretty easygoing, I find, correct? But your videos, I would imagine some people, I don't think they're too aggressive at all. I'm not saying that. They're right in the perfect space of it's more combative. I'm sure some of the other people get annoyed by them, correct? Or no?
I don't know. I'm sure there are obviously people that dislike my videos, but there are.
Well, the people who are the targets will say you're too harsh, even though you're not too harsh. I'm guessing. Maybe
I don't know.
You tell me.
Sometimes not. Sometimes not. No. I mean, some of them, yeah, maybe. I don't know. A lot of them just don't say anything to me. But some of them will like make a comment, and if I find the comment, I will try to pin it to the top of the comments. But a lot of times they say something like, that they're happy that I made the video. Thanks for making it. They disagree with me. Blah 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 blah. And here's why. So I've had pretty good results. I can't think of anybody that absolutely hated that I made the video. I mean, they might have inside. I don't know. I can't tell what they're thinking. But
okay, so maybe I'm wrong. Because I'm basing it off of. I was watching Mike Winger on Pine Creek. Do you know that show? Do you know that guy, Doug? I think his name is.
No.
Well, idea. He's really pretty mellow. Paula G was on the show once doing his deconversion. That's what actually got me the idea that finding out about people's deconversions would be pretty compelling, because I thought that was a fascinating show where Paul talked about his journey from, he was like a Mennonite or something, like really hardcore, more than you, I believe, a lot more.
Yeah, we were like, I don't know, we weren't like brimstone and fire kind of
you weren't fundamentalists. You wouldn't call yourself a fundamentalist then, right?
Well, I was, yes and no. Like I don't think we were like Westboro Baptist Church kind of fundamentalists, but I mean, I was raised to believe that the Bible was true. Like, so fundamentally true.
Literally,
right?
literally true.
Literally true. Yeah. Like, I don't remember them ever saying like, young Earth true kind of thing, but like Noah's flood happened. The events in the Bible happened. Like the world was, I remember like asking about like, well, how did God take 7 days to make 6 days to make the earth, whatever, and seventh day was for rest, and they said, well, it wasn't necessarily 6 days, because 6 days to God might be 6 billion years in human years.
Right,
kind of thing. So they had like workarounds about some of it, but a lot of it was like true, and stuff that's demonstrably false, like the flood, for instance.
What's the word I'm looking for? Sect?
Presbyterian. Yeah, Presbyterian.
Okay, so Presbyterians generally, that's a bit more highbrow, more intellectually open, not quite considered as fundamentalist as like, Ken Ham type stuff.
Yeah, and later I went to rule. Yeah, later I went to Baptist church.
Baptists are generally more hardcore, as my understanding. I'm sure there are exceptions.
Yeah, they were more hardcore than the Presbyterians.
Now, did you believe?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
And how did that belief manifest itself? Would you actively pray?
Yeah, I actively prayed.
Did you think you were getting answers to your prayers? Or experiencing anything did you ever experience anything that you consider? Because I know with Jen with one N, she had a couple of experiences that seemed to me, and actually Robert Reed has said he had some experiences that potentially he thought at the time were supernatural. Now he doesn't.
I don't know if I thought they were super. Like, I guess I can't say that I had any like hardcore supernatural experiences, but I did, like, you know, some, just say like when I prayed, I might have felt like a comfort. You know what I mean? Like,
you felt goosebumps.
Like as if,
like tingly feeling.
Yeah,
you're
like as
Jesus
if
loves me.
Yeah, like as if something cared more about me than I thought, or whatever, like that kind of thing. But not. I didn't see any dead bodies. Was that a sense of comfort?
Dead bodies.
Yeah, at the time.
Wait. Yeah. Dead bodies. Wait, what? What's that?
I mean, like, I mean, like, I didn't see ghosts or something. Like, I didn't see like had like a
like dead bodies.
I didn't have an out of body experience. I didn't have an out of body experience or anything like that. But I mean, I did feel like comfort. It was comforting when I prayed and stuff like that. And I did believe like Jesus rose from the dead, you know, and all that stuff. I believed in all that stuff.
So when did you go? You had a deconversion process. That's part of what surprised me about Drew. He was like, 2 years is probably, you know, he's been an atheist for 2 years. That's probably, it took you longer to deconvert. It probably took you like 4 years or 5, I'm guessing. You know, to go from I have doubts to I'm going to make atheist videos. And now I'm going to be
probably longer than that. I mean, probably more like 10 years. Because like I said, I started asking questions in Sunday school when I was like, you know, 8.
Right.
And so from that,
I would consider
that part of the process. Yeah. But you know, outside of Sunday school, like when I left, like, you know, when you're a kid, when you're like when I was in Sunday school and I was asking questions, that mattered then. But once I left the church, I didn't think about it anymore, really. So
totally.
Yeah. So it wasn't until like later when I had, you know, adult, you know, faculties.
I was telling, actually, objectively, Dan, I was on his chat show just as a practice. He was practicing epistemology on me. Mm-hmm. And I was telling him about some of the questions that I even have. It's very similar to that. Like, I'll latch on to the questions that get asked by atheists. And I had them when I first became a Christian, and I still sometimes have them. But they're not all that important to me. I like, you know, they're like academic. I entertain them in my head for like a couple hours. Maybe I'll watch some video on the subject and then I'll forget all about it. So it's not like it's actively cognitive dissonance. It doesn't really plague me. Well, I don't know if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. It makes sense. But at the for me, it was that at some point, I realized that this is probably the most important question that I'm going to ask myself, right? Because it impacts practically everything that I do. I mean, outside of maybe ethical questions, which might have more of an impact, but I mean, even that, religion plays a role in that, right? So I had to know, is this true? And so that's why I started thinking about it.
So there was some sort of burning. When was that? 15, 16? When did that start happening? Because I imagine that's similar to other atheists. It starts bugging them. And Shannon talked about that too. It starts bugging them more than it does some other, maybe people who are wired differently. Perhaps. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I've always been one, like, even as a kid, that valued truth over just believing things because I feel good. So it's probably always been a part of my makeup, I guess, the way I think. Right. But I'd say probably like you're right, probably like around 18, 19 in there, maybe 17.
Well, part of the reason I thought I'd get along well with atheists, why I wanted to start doing this, and it's starting to happen now, like this type of conversation you and I are having, is that I could kind of empathize or identify with some of the characteristics that I saw in a lot of the atheists. Tend to be more iconoclastic, more philosophical minded. You would describe yourself like that, right? More, not necessarily penetrating, but think more about things than other people do. It's like what I said to Shannon, you know, how many 8-year-olds were thinking about whether Noah's Ark really happened or not? Probably none. Probably you, right? Were you alone in that, right? I mean, your friends were like, yeah, that's a really good question, dude. Let's see how many good evidence. Like, what's wrong with you?
I don't think I ever mentioned it to one of my friends. It was more of a, like, I enjoy, and I still do enjoy, like, even when I listen to something that I agree with, like on some level. I try to find, my brain naturally picks out things that aren't true or aren't. I analyze it, like I don't know how to explain it. Like it's
naturally
just,
skeptical,
yeah,
or
yeah, but
naturally analytical. I've always
yeah,
felt myself to be more analytical than most people. My sister too. I would
yeah.
describe you as that for sure.
Yeah, I just naturally like gravitate towards like, okay, what parts of this do I agree with? What parts don't I? Why don't I? What facts are wrong? What facts are right? How could they have worded
Right.
that better? All that kind of stuff,
That's
right?
see, I'm a little bit wired like that. And I don't think most people who would describe themselves as Christian or religious are probably not. They tend to be more black and white. Would you say that? Or more, you
I
know,
think a lot of religion, like generally speaking, because every I'll just put this disclaimer out there that everything that I'm talking about is like general. I'm not saying every single Christian is this way, but I think Christians or religious people in general tend to go towards traditionalism, maybe
right,
conservatism,
right, exactly.
that kind of thing. Yeah, that kind of thinking. Yeah, definitely.
Exactly. And you're totally, I'm assuming you're politically liberal just from the little things that I've seen you post on, but I don't know for a fact. And you're Canadian, right? Which makes a really big difference, I think, in how your
Yeah,
politics plays out.
yeah. I did the political compass test or whatever, and it was really liberal. I was actually surprised by how liberal it was, because I thought I would have because I voted conservative in Canada, but maybe our conservatives aren't the same as the ones in the States. But
Yeah, that's why it's total. Like, I'm sure you don't like Trump, right?
no, yeah, I dislike Trump. I disliked
Right.
Hillary too, though. But
Yeah, but probably for different reasons. You probably thought she was a sellout and a corporatist, and so you would
yeah,
probably be a Justice Democrat. Do you know what the Justice Democrats are? Do
yes,
you?
and no, no, I'm not. I don't think I'm a
Okay.
Justice Democrat.
Okay, so you're
Um,
not. Okay, so
yeah,
then you are somewhat moderate on your
yeah.
left
There's
wing.
like, yeah, and there's like points that conservatives make that I would agree with. I mean, they're not. There's not more of them than liberals, but I would say I'm at least partially like I can take points from conservative talking points and say, yeah, I agree with that,
Right. Well,
right?
if you're analytical, you. Part of the reason why I thought this conversations with you would go well. Hopefully, this isn't the only one. Is that I tend to think of you as fair-minded. I think you look more for truth. That's what I was trying to say in the video that I made about you being too nice now. All of a sudden, you're too nice. I think when you have people on your show, you're trying to get at what's true. I don't think you're just trying to. So the same would apply. I think conservatives are right about some things in
Well,
terms of.
yeah, it's not just true. It's well, there's many reasons why I'm nice to people on my podcast, right? For one, like the people that are making those comments don't know that you have to get guests on your podcast, and nobody's going to want to come on your show if they think
You're
that
a douche
you're going
to
to
it.
come on and yeah, just to berate
And tear
them,
them
right?
up.
So that's
Yeah,
one
you get
reason.
one guy.
But there's many other reasons. Like I'm just not I naturally don't like I like arguing, but I like arguing in a debate, like debating or like throwing about. I guess I like having conversations with people, and I like listening to their ideas, right? And
Right.
I'm not into like yelling and screaming at people. It's just not me. It's stressful. It's not something I like to do. I don't do it in my personal life. Like me and my fiance, I think we've had like 2 fights. And we've been
Right.
together for almost like 3 years, going on 4 years, and I think two of
So you're
those
not
were
into
like,
you don't get any charge out of interpersonal conflict at all.
right,
Because
no,
that's what some people are getting. The people who are the douchebag atheists, I find that they're not interested in the ideas at all. They're just tripping out on, getting in your face and being aggressive. That's the part that they enjoy. That's
yeah.
why I don't like them. I shun them. I don't necessarily mind some spillover of aggression
I
in
mean,
a
there are
context, in a
you're
heated
roboting
context.
out, but there are times where I might get like when people are like homophobic, for instance, that tends to make me a little bit angry. So I might be more combative in that situation. But if it's just like somebody saying, look, I believe that Jesus, rose from the dead,
And he loves you. You're like,
yeah,
no, shut up. Give me the
yeah,
evidence. Like, get off my show.
Yeah, exactly. Like I still disagree with it. I would still ask some questions about why they think that, but I'm more interested in why people think the things they do. And I'm interested in that when it comes to me too, right? Like there are times, like I remember, an ex-girlfriend of mine. I forget exactly what she did, but she would wash the dishes in this specific way. And one day I just said to her, I said, "Why do you do it that way? It takes longer, and it's harder. So why wouldn't you do it this way?" And she turned to me, and I remember she said, "I don't know. My grandma just taught me how to do it that way, and that's the way I've always done it." And for me, that was like a flashpoint, because I was like, how many things do we do that we just do because somebody else told us that that was the right way to do it, instead of actually thinking about why we do
breaking
that,
it down.
Why do we believe that thing? Why do we do that thing? And so that's what I'm more interested in doing. That's what I want my podcast to be about, is about, respecting people for being human beings, but at the same time analyzing and really looking at why they believe the things they do. And I think some of the listeners kind of miss that. And it might be partially my fault, which is kind of why I moved Either Hour into its own channel soon. Because, like you said, my videos are different than my podcast.
I think your videos would be more popular without the podcast. The podcast would be popular with different types of people who watch your videos. Like, your videos they have a natural atheist audience. I know you didn't ask. I'm just this is just something I thought about, because your videos they're like clickbait for atheists. I'm sure that they love them, because you're not too harsh, but you'll what's that girl like? What's her Girl Afraid or something? Christian girl. What's her name? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, the one that everyone loves to hate. Drew was just talking about her.
Girl Defined or something like that?
Yes. Like, I could see you doing a funny send-up of that, where you analyze her video and, like, atheists just eat it up. But it's a totally different type of thing than you and Shannon have someone on your show. And I think you're doing the right approach. Totally, completely the right approach when you have a guest. But that's a totally different audience. Yeah. So if you split it up, you'll have...
The original idea, though, for the podcast for me was that, because I did videos for a long time, and then when I say a long time, I mean, like, 6 months or something, but without a podcast.
Gosh, you guys have been doing this as long as I have. I consider myself like a neophyte, and you like these established atheists, and we've been around for the same amount of time.
Yeah, I've been. My channel's been around for a year and a half, I think. So,
what on earth?
Yeah. So for like the first year, I just made videos, but then I always got questions from like subs and stuff saying, like, it was nice when I did like sometimes I would just do like a live stream and I would just answer questions and stuff. And they said, it's really nice to like kind of hear like the human side of you, the non-polished side of you. I'd really like
That's why I didn't think you exist. I didn't think you existed for a long time.
Yeah, and so like the podcast is a chance for me to do that, right? Like it's a chance for me to like be me. Then, well, I am me in like the Godless Cranium in the channel is me, but it's also a polish to me, because it's me after having thought of, being able to sit down and think about each thing that I'm saying without not doing it.
The Godless Cranium videos have a definite persona. And it kind of mixes, why I like it is it kind of mixes fairly high level apologetics. Like, you do go into the theology and you try to break down the which you do better than most.
Man, we had
What was that?
I don't know. Was it me?
Like, you do better than most, where you go into you and Drew do pretty well in terms of, you're not just like, you'll be smart mouth about what the guy's doing, but then you'll go into some of the apologetics, and but there's a definite persona to your videos. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I try, like, if you knew me in real life, you would know that I like to goof around and I like to have fun.
I got that. I get that immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I
you
can
probably do
totally
because
tell
of
that.
Twitter, and on Twitter, sometimes I'll just say goofy things.
It's also just a sense. There's some of that
Yeah.
in your videos too. You make jokes and stuff. Like
Yeah.
you always start
Exactly.
off with like the goofy Christian thing, like the singing Christian girls or something like that.
They bring
So
me so much joy. Yeah. But yeah, but basically, yeah. So like, I want to like showcase the real, like the I want to showcase me and not be fake about it. So, my videos kind of showcase those parts of me, like like I have a sense of humor, um, but I also don't want to dismiss the arguments that are being made in the other video by just being a dick the entire time. Uh,
right. Well, that's what I'm trying to say. That's what I wasn't saying it very well, but you combine a couple of different. That's why the videos are good, because
yeah,
you do make some fun and have some fun at the expense of the Christian community, and we don't appreciate it. But then you go into the actual substance of the theology. Most of the Weisenheimer videos won't go into the theology too. You do both, which makes them interesting and entertaining. Do you
yeah,
see what I'm saying?
and to be fair, I'll even I make fun of myself like in the videos as well. Like I'll make like my last video, I made
A
fun of
little
me like
bit, a little bit.
me
Not
singing. Come
successful.
on, me
Oh yeah, you
singing
singing. That's
Twinkle
right. And you're gonna
Twinkle. I
sing
mean,
on this show. Yes, yes. That was awesome. That was awesome. I forgot to comment on that. I was gonna say, if atheism doesn't pan out, you always got you always got a
yeah,
shot. Now, let me ask you before I forget this, because I didn't want to forget this. Have you ever tried improv?
no, I
Have you
can't
ever
sing. I'm
no
not a good
improv
singer.
comedy? Yeah,
Oh, improv comedy? No, no, because I don't like talking in front of crowds. Uh, so
so
before I went to college, when you take a social working type course, you have to do public speaking a lot, and it was by far the worst thing. I got the best mark in my class, but I couldn't master the talking in front of crowds. I would start to shake, my hands would shake very badly, which is part of
oh
the reason why I
wow.
don't go on camera. Um, and so every week, well, almost every week, probably every 2 weeks, my teacher would make me do a presentation, and by the end, I was pretty good at them. Like I would still get a little nervous inside, but I could do them really well. And um, but it's not my thing. Like it's not something that I would dive out there and try to do. If I have to do it now, I can do it. But it's
They
not something
say
I like
that
to do.
people are more afraid of it. Number one on people's biggest phobias, fears, is public speaking ahead of being
Mm.
shot, ahead of like almost anything you can think of
Well, I would
normally.
take being shot over that, but but no,
Yeah.
it's more because I don't like being. It's weird because I don't like being the center of attention. Like I don't like being in a crowd of people. Like crowds for me are really bad, and then being in a crowd of people where they're all like just intently focused on you is
Wow,
nightmarish.
that's really. I'm exactly the opposite.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, yeah. When my wife and I go out to dinner like once a month, and like, I just come alive. It's like my dad. My dad was. I'm almost wired exactly like him. I'm a total loner, except when I'm in a crowd, and then I'll start telling stories and just making jokes and having fun. And
Yeah.
it's the same type of personality.
Yeah, when I go out with my fiance and she makes me go to places where there's a crowd of people, I'm very good at making jokes and stuff. But it's not the same as like making a joke is not taken as serious, right? Like when you're doing a presentation in front of a crowd, you're the expert and so that's why the fear is there, right? Like
Right,
I can
right,
tell
right.
jokes in front of crowds, I guess, but um yeah, it's just like, and crowds alone, like malls for instance, will give me a headache if I'm in there for a long time. So
Really.
yeah, yeah, my friends call me the unsocial social worker.
The unsocial social, the loner,
Yeah.
the most likely to shoot the post office, and everyone's
Yeah.
like, he seems so nice.
Well, and a lot of times when I get off work, which is kind of good because my fiance is also a social worker, so she gets it. But at my job, the people that I work with are like, because they're deafblind, most people can't talk to them, so or can't understand them, And so when they get somebody that they can talk to, then they're like, they'll talk your ear off, right? So for 8 hours, they'll just talk, ask me questions, talk, ask questions, right? And by the time I'm done, I just don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to be bugged. So that's
Wait,
why.
they're what are they? They're deaf and blind?
Yes, yeah.
Which, so I'm trying to think. So how do you communicate with them?
Well, it's legally deafblind, so they might have some residual sight
Oh,
or
I
hearing.
gotcha. Okay. Okay.
So,
But other people don't want to put the effort into. They have to be close to them or something.
Yeah, like there's like all different clients. Like some you would have to, like some are legitimately they can't see or hear at all, and then you would have to do finger signing where you feel the hands.
Okay.
So you could do it that way.
You know how to sign and you know how to do all that type of stuff.
I don't know how to do the touching of the hand one, but yeah, I do. I do use my one client I use sign language with, and the other one I can talk to. But he also, like when he talks, he has CP, so he slurs his words and stuff, and so like it's like a really thick accent. It would be like a really thick accent, and like a lot of people can't understand somebody if they have a really thick accent.
Right.
It would be the same kind of thing. So like if you were talking to him, like some people can just pick up on it and just like talk to him, but the vast majority of people, like I'd say 90% of people,
struggle to communicate. So he struggles to communicate with people, and they're not going to necessarily put the effort into,
right. Really or they'll just look at me, right? Like because I'm with him, so they'll like listen to what he said and then just kind of like look at me, like to translate.
Right.
So yeah, so that's like part of my job to do that as well. So. So it's very like very social and
so it's you probably get a lot out of it. I imagine it's really really challenging at times in terms of emotionally.
Well, most of the time, maybe I don't know, because I'm also not super emotional. So
I get that.
Yeah, like it takes a lot for me. There are times where I'll feel like like a real, like I don't know, like there's things that they'll do that are like for instance my birthday just passed, and my client, the one that uses sign language, sent me a little video of her signing happy birthday to me on my birthday, and that made me want to cry because that was beautiful. But
right.
It takes like things like that to make me get emotional, I guess. So
you're not Italian.
No, yeah, I'm like
you're like
I'm like a 2 out of 10 on the emotional scale, I guess.
Right, I'm probably an 8 or a 9. My wife will say a 15.
It's more like to be social. Like I feel like I have a battery, and then I have to recharge that battery by being alone, which is why kind of YouTube works for me, because it's a lonely thing. It's a lonely endeavor.
Yeah, no, it really is. It actually fits your persona really well in terms of it's somewhat public because people are watching it, but you can also be really, really private. You're like Sia, Sia, who never shows her face or.
Exactly, yeah. And I have fun with like the different avatars and stuff, which I just got a new one, which I'm looking forward to using. And I also find that that YouTube is, it's, I don't know, I've met like a lot of cool people on YouTube as well, like other atheists, even some Christians like you, and so
anybody. Found go ahead.
Oh, well, I've talked to lots of Christians that I know a lot of people have problems with, like other atheists have problems with, but in general, I don't like. I don't know. Maybe it's just because, like I said, like I'm not very emotional, so I don't get like offended easily. I get why they're offended by those people.
Well, your personality is not. You're not into interpersonal conflict, and you tend to be very mellow. So things like. A lot of them trip out on SJ. I mean, I love SJ, and I'm sure you like her too, for the most part. But a lot of them are like, and I'm not exactly sure why. I'm sure they have reasons that they think are valid, but I don't necessarily think they are.
I would think it's probably because they think she's dishonest, because that's a lot of the comments I see, and because, like, I don't know, like she says, for instance, like one of her videos, like 10 questions that atheists can't answer, and then she gets like 1,000 responses. And then she makes another one saying 5 questions atheists can't answer. So to them, it seems dishonest because we've already answered the question. So why are you saying we can't answer them? We obviously did. Now it's your turn to like
right. But that's kind of like
those.
that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like that. That's not something that you'd even notice and go, "Oh my God!" You wouldn't take that personally. And the fact that they're taking that personally is kind of like, huh? What, you know?
Yeah,
but she's cool like that. It's good that she's polarizing. It's good.
Yeah, I
it's
noticed it in the periphery, but like I notice it, but it's not like a deal breaker for me, I guess, is what I would say. Like there are Christians that I really just dislike and won't talk to or pay any attention to, and they're not SJ. But there's like a few that are like just ridiculously, like I consider them like mean-spirited, dishonest. Like if you're dishonest a lot, like if you're, and I know I just said like SJ could be misconstrued as dishonest, but I mean like legitimately like misrepresenting me and saying like, you know, trying to smear people's characters and stuff like that. If you're that kind of person, I don't want anything to do with you. But I've never, it's in my experience, SJ has never acted that way towards me. So I'm not going to act that way towards her. Right. Like she's never said an unkind word to me that I can think of. She's never like smeared my character. She might say, yeah, you're wrong. And I'm fine with that. Like bring it. Right. But yeah, I'm not going to get bent out of shape about that kind of stuff.
Right. I mean, well, see, you're not, but part of the thing is you got, in order to get you going, in order to get you to a point where you're conflicting with someone, somebody's got to actually have to work at it. You're not just going to get triggered by somebody just, you know, making some mistakes or doing this or that. You know, they got to actually kind of work to get under your skin. I'm very much like that. I consider myself like that. I mean, I've had only like 2 or 3 conflicts.
Like character assassinations and stuff like that are enough to do it for me. Like, for instance, when I listen to like Red Pill Religion and they start talking about Shannon and literally calling her a Nazi, to me that's a character. Yeah. To me that's a form of,
wait.
Yeah, Shannon.
Our Shannon is a Nazi? Yeah. I've never heard that. I didn't know. Is Red Pill is Max Colby? Is that those guys?
Yeah, Max Colby and them.
Yeah, a lot of atheists don't like them. That's also why SJ gets in trouble, because she is friends with a lot of them or interacts with a lot of them, and then atheists will see that and get mad at her. You know, but she's also better with people than they realize because she knows them. She's kind of like Hillary Clinton. Okay, here's my SJ thing. Hillary Clinton, everyone would knock her for being really bad at politics, at the public part of politics. But she was actually really good at some other aspects of politics that nobody noticed. Like the fact that Hillary Clinton ran unopposed in the Democratic primary is because she was excellent at making backroom deals and like, you know, different attributes of politics that most people don't think about. She was great at. SJ is kind of like that. She's really good at some things, interpersonal, that, you know, I'm not that great at or don't bother doing. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I don't know. It's I can see their point partially because if I think you're partially responsible for who you hang around with, right? So and I'm not saying like you can't go on a show and discuss stuff with somebody you don't agree with. But I mean, if you're like palling around, like if I'm palling around with white nationalists, then it's I can see why people would like be like, well, why is he palling around with white nationalists, right?
Oh, I'm not saying to criticize her for that is unfair necessarily.
Yeah, and some of the things they say about people, like I said, like calling Shannon a Nazi, which is just
that's weird.
Like
that's totally
just really weird, and the way they talk about women, especially people like Shannon, and stuff like that. That kind of stuff. I that's why I stopped talking to them. I just don't. I can't put up with that kind of stuff. There's a line there, right? And that's crossing the line for me. Now, like, if they make a video saying that my video is wrong and I'm stupid and I'm a moron and I don't understand things, then I'm fine with that. That's not crossing the line for me. But when you start trying to call me a Nazi or or say, you
In
know,
the
like
you don't mind rough play in the context of the contest of ideas. I'm
Mhm.
sort of like that too. If I'm in a debate with somebody and it gets a little bit, you know, they start saying, "Shut up, you don't know what you're." In the context of a debate, that's fine. You know, my only problem is, and I don't really have that many problems. Like I said, very few conflicts. I can't remember the last one I had. Um, you know, is when people are doing it personally. That's the only time where I get upset. And
Yeah.
I'm sure you're somewhat similar.
But yeah, and Sygart just said that SJ hasn't been connected to Max for a long time. Me neither. So yeah, and that might be true. I don't um I haven't seen her like
Is that
being
someone in the
pals.
chat?
Yeah,
Someone said
Sygart.
that in the chat.
Yeah, Sygart. He's cool. He's a
Oh,
scientist.
What's up,
Yeah.
Sai?
Um, but that might be true, and that's why I haven't really said anything about that because it's not. I haven't seen her like palling around with them. But if other people have and they are talk like saying that this is a reason why, I can see why they would say that's a reason why. That SJ isn't being a good person at that moment, I guess. But
Well, she
um,
part of the thing is she gets held to a different standard because she's good at it to one degree or another. She makes friends with a lot of atheists, and she's actually really pretty good at you know, connecting with people. So she gets to know a lot of people. But then she'll
mhm,
do something like pal around with the. I don't necessarily. They don't bother me in terms of me. I sometimes think that his ideas are okay. You know, I'm like, okay, I can accept that, but
mhm.
I can understand why atheists would get annoyed with it. It doesn't bother me, you know, but I'm cognizant of the fact that if you hang out with them too much, other atheists are going to get really tripped out because I'm aware of the fact that they'll get tripped out. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm not explaining this very well. Go ahead. You talk.
Well, no, I was just gonna say like, yeah, I get like again, I don't mind their like attacking atheist videos or even attacking atheists for whatever they think. But when they start trying to smear people's characters, that's when I start to say, yeah, that's crossing a line. Like if
Right.
and I would
I
say
would.
the same. I would say the same thing about us, right? Like if I'm watching Cirrus is in the chat, so I'm just gonna say Cirrus, right? If I'm watching Cirrus and he starts calling you a Nazi and he has no evidence whatsoever, he's just saying it, right? He's just like, yeah, you know what? That Craig Reed guy, he's a white nationalist. He wants to kill all the Jews and he wants to make a white ethno state, right? And then you're
Right.
like, okay, well, where's the evidence? And there is none. Then I would be the same. I would stop watching Cirrus, right? Like I'd be like, this
Right.
guy is just mean spirited and he's being a dick.
Right.
So,
Right. And
uh,
there's no point in that.
right.
Um, but when they make their rough criticisms of people in a context that it's fair, you know, like I said, sometimes I've seen him on shows where I thought he's made some good points. He just goes too far in the ginning up the interpersonal conflict part. I'm not
Mhm.
really interested in it. You know, that's not why I'm doing this. So it's not attractive or interesting to me. So I don't really care about it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And it's fine if it's like, if it's joking around or something like that, then that's one thing. But I mean, he seems like perfect and he seems perfectly um like legit. Like he thinks that there's like some kind of atheist mafia that is out to like target Christians, and that's just not the case. I mean, and I've tried to explain it to them, and they still continue with the same thing. Originally, I thought that there could be a bridge that could be built there, and that we'd be able to have conversations, and it'd be more interesting for everybody involved. But I just don't see that anymore. I just don't think that that's ever going to happen. I think that they're in it for the drama, and they're in it for the smearing, and maybe I don't know exactly what their motivation is, but it, I don't want any part of it, so I've just stopped
Right. I got you.
uh,
Yeah,
doing
no,
anything.
I totally get where you're coming from. So you just don't, it's just not, you're not doing this for the interpersonal dramas, for the interpersonal conflict. And, you know, you're actually, and this is one of the reasons why I thought why I wanted you on the show. Cause I get that. I mean, you're totally, and Shannon too, you guys are doing your thing and you want to have honest conversations with people and you aren't really about the, you know, the
Well,
conflict and the.
well, I also hold myself like I have an ethical standard that I want to hold myself to, right? That like for instance, when I make videos, I do not uh talk about people's physical appearances or how they talk or anything like those things that they can't change about themselves, right? Those
Right.
things are off limits to me. I'm not going to make fun of those things. I'm not going to be mean to those people for that reason. I'll attack their arguments and I'll attack their ideas, but I'm not going to
And their
attack them.
presentations and things like that.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
before let me switch gears because I want to. Jordan Peterson, you started talking about him.
Hmm.
Go. I'll ask you a question if I need to, but what's your take?
On Jordan Peterson. Um,
Yes, because you've done some cool videos on him, and one of the things that you point, I think it was your video where you pointed out the size of his footprint and his influence, and I thought that was an interesting
he
beginning take. Go ahead.
he the more I know, the more I watch him, the less I like him. So at first I was like, huh, this guy's not, you know, he, and then the more I watched him, the more I realized that I think the more popular he's gotten, the worse he's gotten. Like now when he talks, he's just making word salad. Um, and I mean, I don't know how he could sit there with a straight face and say, there's no such thing as an atheist to Sam Harris or something like that. I
Well,
guess
yeah. Did you watch that? Did you watch the Matt Dillahunty Jordan Peterson debate?
I've only watched a small portion of it. I haven't watched it all yet. I have it
Okay.
on my saved list, but work's
Yeah, I
been
think I
crazy.
gave it to you actually.
Yeah, I think you might have. So when it comes to religion, I think he's completely wrong. Besides, maybe he's talking about the archetype thing, and I can kind of understand where he's coming from on that. But at the same time, you can do that for anything, right? Like I said in one of my videos, like I could do that with the Hulk, and I did in that video, right? Like I could just take the Hulk comic and draw a whole bunch of conclusions and a whole bunch of like make metaphors out of it and all this kind of stuff and make it sound super smart and sell it, right? And say, look, the Hulk's great. We should all be emulating what the Hulk does, right? But it's not real. There's better books to me than the Bible. The Bible to me is a horrific book. We could definitely do better in that department. If you want to take a book as some kind of an example, it is like a lot of anti-SJWs. I think I don't know if he class himself as an anti-SJW, but he's kind of like the poster boy for some of them.
Well, that's what's catapulted him to fame was his take on, I guess, gender pronouns in
C16.
Canada.
Yeah,
Right,
C16,
that's Canadian thing.
which was wrong. He was wrong. It wasn't
Oh,
had
you what?
nothing to
I don't
do.
know the details. I don't know the details of it,
Yeah,
but
yeah, he was. Yeah, it was. I don't know if he did it on purpose. I try to be charitable with how I interpret people, so he might have actually thought that they were going to force him to use gender pronouns. I don't know, but all that it was doing was putting those genders under the same protections that you would get for race and religion and stuff like that. So it's a protected class or group, right? But
right.
that doesn't mean that I have to, if you were identifying as a Zebert, I don't have to call you a Zebert, right? Like they're not going to put me in jail. They're not going to give me a fine. I don't know what
Right.
he was thinking.
That's the thing that put him on the map in terms
Yeah.
of got him a lot of attention because
Yeah.
he
It's
might have
just,
strategized that because there is an avenue. There's a guy right now who's quit the Democratic Party, for example, because he finds he's used to be a leftist and now he thinks that the left is too XYZ. And it's getting him attention on all the places you would think. There's a kind of, I don't know that he would have strategized media-wise, but that's a really, really possibility to go, I need to connect with a big audience, so let me do something deliberately, that gets me on conservative talk shows and things like that.
it's possible.
That's possible.
But
that's what you're saying, right? That's what you're implying.
He could
potentially
have. He could have. Yeah, I don't know what his motivation was. I don't know if he thought that, but he clearly didn't understand what he was talking about because it's been law now for a year and a half and nothing like that has happened. If people had actually looked up what like law professors were saying about that law, they all were saying no, that's not what's going to happen. You're not going to be forced to do anything. So I think like his reputation was based on basically a lie or a misrepresentation, or at the very least he was wrong about what he was talking about. And then it just built. But
let's talk about let's go to his Christian stuff. So he's getting blowback on the Christian. I watched the debate with Matt Dillahunty, and I was actually kind of disappointed because Matt did analysis of it where he's like, he kind of strawman me, and I was like, yeah, he kind of did. You know, I analyzed it differently. I thought it was that he was somewhat not prepared to be in the role of, you know, I'm now debating an atheist. He wants to defend religion. I get that, but more along the lines of he's a traditionalist at heart. He thinks that religion is valuable for society and culture. I don't think he's a Christian, or he's a kind of sort of Christian. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say that so you asked what I thought. So I kind of slammed Jordan. There are two areas that I think he is good in, and I think he's kind of shown that there's a significant portion of, you know, young men that feel like they don't have any direction, and he's kind of like their father figure. And I think he's kind of like ripped the Band-Aid off of that and shown that there's like a problem there.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
Yeah. So for that, he's good, I think. And I guess he might be good for like starting the conversation again from a different angle on religion.
Well, that's exactly where I was going with that. Thank you. Go ahead.
But he's definitely not like, for somebody that says like we have to, you know, you should speak plainly. He does not speak plainly most of the time. So,
does he really say you should speak plainly? Wow, that's ironic.
Yeah, that's one of his 12 rules or whatever, is speak plainly. And he definitely does not speak plainly. Yeah, exactly.
He's like he'll do it's a big fallback position for collegiate professorial types. You know, they'll start throwing. Well, when Dostoevsky says, and then he'll just go from like try to make it sound as erudite as possible, and then you can disguise the fact that you might not be saying anything all that valid. He's been accused of that a lot, and that's fairly valid criticism.
Yeah, I'd really like to know whether he actually believes, like, if, like you said, he's not a Christian. I tend to take people at their word. Like if they say I'm a Christian, then I would just assume that they're a Christian.
Well, he's a Christian, but he's a kind of sort of Christian, which a lot of people are. If you ask people who say, yes, I'm a Christian, they're not like me. They're not like, you know, sold out. You would probably say crazy people Christians, like really, really committed to Christianity. And
but I would think one of the main pillars of Christianity is you'd have to believe that Christ actually rose from the dead, right? So I would think that's a main pillar, that if you take that pillar out, you're not really following Christianity.
Not really a Christian, right? Well, he's a kind of sort of Christian.
And every time I've ever seen him ask that question directly, like, hey, do you believe that Jesus rose from the dead? He'll say, I don't know. What do you mean by real? What do you mean? And he doesn't answer the question. And so that leads me to believe that he probably doesn't. And he just thinks that the Christian Bible is like a roadmap that we should be following for a better society. That's the only thing.
Exactly.
That's the only.
That's exactly where he's at. Yeah. Right, but that's exactly where he's at. He thinks that his take is that, but he hasn't worked it out completely, because I could hear that in his debate with Matt Dillahunty. He's saying,
I think he has.
How?
I think he has, and I think that he is meeting people now that are stronger. Like before, he wasn't having debates with people like Matt Dillahunty. He was having
stronger atheists than he is a Christian, so he's falling. Okay, go ahead.
People that actually have arguments that are saying, "Look, what you're saying doesn't make any sense here." And when you start spewing stuff like, "Well, there are no such things as atheists. You all borrow from, you know, what the nonsense, right?" Like you're like, "Look, I'm telling," like. Atheists don't get away with that, right? Like I don't get to say to you, "Hey, you're not a Christian," right? You don't get away with that. You can't tell me what I believe, right? I'm telling you.
Yeah, no, that was definitely a low point in his conversation with Matt Dillahunty, but I thought that came from the pressure of what you just said, actually, that he wasn't used to facing. Matt Dillahunty, he doesn't follow these guys. I've been watching these guys for years now, so I know what they're talking about and what they're going to say and where they're coming from. He doesn't, so he hadn't really thought about his. I think his thing is religion is very valuable for society as a whole. It's one of the cornerstones of Western civilization, and it's the Judeo-Christian ethos has suffused our entire moral being as a culture. That he believes. I've heard that sort of idea out of his mouth. I tend to agree with that. But then he goes further and goes, how could it be so useful if it isn't on some level true? So he's not sure if Jesus is actually God, but he believes in God in a general sense. And he kind of thinks it's Jesus, but he's not sure. So he doesn't know how to answer that question. But then when he gets in a conversation with the committed atheists, he's weak. He doesn't know how to.
Well, because something doesn't necessarily need to be true to be useful, right? Like, it depends on what you classify as being useful. Like, if I think that keeping my kids being good, according to my standards of good, is accomplished by telling them that Santa is real, then to me that's a good thing, right? So like something, and I'm not trying to. I know that Christians hate it when you use Santa in
I don't care.
correlation with God, but I'm not trying to be an asshole about it. I'm really saying, like, I could tell them anything if I think that the ends justify the means, right?
Right. Well, that was the argument Matt was trying to present. He was saying just because it's useful, Matt was giving him, and I'm not even sure if you would give him this, that religion is useful. Matt was giving him that, seeding that. I was surprised that he did that because I'm sure you would make a case opposite to that. But he was giving him that religion is useful. That doesn't mean it's true. Go ahead.
It depends on the context. Like, do I think that religion is useful or has been? Yeah, there's obviously things that I could say that, like I could point to and say, okay, well, religion helped there. Do I think that it could be my biggest argument is that you can still accomplish those things without religion. And that we should be doing that and not relying on supernatural superstitions to do that. So that's my biggest argument. Isn't that you can't have good things happen because of religion, but that you can get those same good things without having to believe the nonsense of religion. And I'm not just talking about Christianity. I'm talking about any religion that has supernatural elements to it. Like you could say the same thing about Buddhism, where they believe in like karma and reincarnation and stuff like that. They woo, right? You can get all the good things about Buddhism without believing in those things, right? And we should be taking out as many untrue things as possible, and constructing our worldviews on what we currently think to be true about the world. And I don't think that raising the dead raising after 3 days is one of those things, right? So that would be my basic argument.
So that would be your argument to me. Okay, so
I never say that religion can't be useful ever. I don't think I've ever said that. I just think that those things that are useful in religion can be accomplished in other ways.
Right. Okay, I got you. And then you think that it's fundamental, but you do consider yourself an anti-theist, right? I mean, yes. You use that label for yourself. So how does that work? How does that manifest itself in terms of we got some Christians potentially in the chat. Mm-hmm. What would be your main arguments against Christianity, or not arguments against it, main toxic, why would you consider yourself an anti-theist, most importantly, if you could pick like three to five reasons?
Because religions aren't true. That's my main thing. And I think we should be basing our worldviews and our policies on as many true things as possible. And
right, but most atheists who don't consider themselves anti-theists would say that it's not true. Why anti-theist as opposed to just God doesn't exist and I don't care?
Because I think one is like an apathetic. Like,
it's a good question, right? I mean, if you don't believe in God,
Right. But okay,
What
like if
motivates you past that point to just go, I don't believe, I don't care. Leave me alone.
um because like if I look at the world, I see a lot of damage that religion has done. And again, I'm not just talking about Christianity. And it's everywhere, and people are all like, there's so many people that believe in this stuff, like billions. Like obviously, like atheists around the world are a very small minority. Um, we're
Yeah,
surrounded by believers,
totally.
and they all have like erroneous beliefs, and a big proportion of them have beliefs that target people like me who don't believe in that stuff, right? And they want people like me to shut up. Throughout history, we've had you know LGBT people suppressed and oppressed from by these religions. Um, we still are. We still see that. Uh, there's just so much harm being done, and I can't just sit by and say nothing about it. Um, I guess that's just like a feeling that I have, that I just can't do that.
And that
And
got stronger in you over the years. Like you started out as a Christian, and then you went from questioning, correct? You
mhm.
know, for about what, 5 to 7 years? Is that what we, five to
Yeah,
7 years?
yeah, we'll say, yeah, like for a while. It was a long while.
And then one day you said, I'm just not feeling it at all. There's no God, and I'm going to make videos about it. Like, when does it turn into a cause? Because you kind of have a
when I
commitment
see,
to it.
yeah, probably when I saw Christians in the U.S. and in Canada trying to stop same-sex marriage, when I saw planes flying into buildings, when I see women having
Oh,
to be put into
okay.
bags and told that they're not allowed to show their ankles, uh, all kinds of things. Like when I see millions of dead animals on a field because Hindus think that there's one day where you can slaughter as many animals as you want or something like that. Um, when I see these things, that's when it happens. And there's and I mean there's a lot of like smaller things, right? Like I've known people that that have lost their family because they just said, you know what, I don't believe in this anymore, and their family would disown them. My family is very religious, especially
Yeah,
my
what
extended
happened with
family.
that when you came out as atheist? How did that go down?
Well, my immediate family, like my mom, my sister,
Mhm.
are atheists as well now. But my uncles and stuff, like if I go to a family reunion, just say, they're very religious, so they don't like
Wait,
it
your
if you.
mom and your sister have become atheists
Yeah, well, my sister always has been, I think. Yeah,
because of you?
no, no, she came to that same conclusion as I did. She just doesn't talk about it very much. But my mom actually, I just found out that she was an atheist. I always thought she was a religious one, and and I always wondered why my dad would believe, because he was always like a reader, and he really like was very logical and um, stuff like that. So I thought my mom was the one that believed, but it was actually the other way around.
Ah,
Do you think people would be better? Oh, I just want to answer this question from Saigar because it's a good question. Do you think people would be better if there were no religions? Depends what you mean by religion. I think that people need philosophies, and that we should be constructing philosophies that are mere reality and are changeable when we find out new truths or new facts.
yeah. Feel
Um,
free to answer any question in the
yeah.
chat. I don't even know how to look at the chat, so I don't know who's there, and
Uh,
I don't know how to read it.
yeah. So
I just kick back and
like if there's a philosophy that there obvious all supernatural religions, like religions based on supernatural, yeah, I think we'd be better off with those without those religions. That doesn't mean that we couldn't take some of the parts of those religions that are
what about the
helpful
teachings of
and
Jesus
use.
himself? Do you the actual teachings of Jesus? Do you like them? Most atheists are cool with them to a point, and then there's like one or two that are like, I
Well,
can't believe he said that.
I'm cool with him until he starts saying things like "we're gonna go to hell." Before Jesus, that wasn't a thing. So, um, yeah, that, and to me, that's the worst part of the, like if you think of just the concept of hell. that billions upon billions of people are going to be burning, having their flesh ripped from their skin and then rebuilt and done over and over again.
Was that something you thought about when you were young in church? Did that plague you?
Yeah, and I don't know how anybody that's a Christian can think that it would be paradise, knowing that some of your family members are having that happen to them. Like, there's
a lot of different ways to answer that, but I'll just tell you from my own personal thing. When I first became a Christian, that used to bother me a lot. I've said this before, but me and this one guy used to talk about that all the time. Like, how could that possibly be fair on any level? And then one day I just got like, it's hard to explain what happened. I just got peace about it. It's just like,
see, I find that prospect scary. I find that mortifyingly scary. I mean, to think that you just came to peace with people being tortured.
Well, that's not really the peace. I used to really struggle with it and anguish over it. And we talk about it a lot. And then my peace came to being trusting the character of God himself. And there's a scripture that says, trust the Lord with all your heart and cling not to your own understanding. And I felt very strongly, and you take this with a grain of salt, as you obviously will, but I was in prayer about it, and I felt like God put on my heart, yeah, you're more merciful than God. In other words, come on, your whole sense of justice. If I'm telling the truth and there's actually a God, then any sense that I would have of justice at all or mercy at all originated with God. It's not like I'm the better person than God, or I care more about people than God, or I'm going to be more fair than God. It's got to all be fair somehow. Now, whether that means nobody goes to hell, I don't know. I'm not sure I know what fair is. My best guess is that only the really bad people go to hell, not the atheist, godless cranium guys who, they're troublesome because they make atheist videos and, that's pure evil. But those guys get some sort of pass.
But even the evil people, I wouldn't want to see.
You're not pure
tortured
evil
for all eternity. No, but I mean, even if I was, right, like, just say, I'm Hitler. Do I want to see Hitler being tortured? No, I'm not. But I'm just saying, like, hypothetically, let's just say, I have Hitler type aspirations, right? So I'm evil. I'm not a good person. I still wouldn't want to see you being that person being tortured for millions and millions and millions. I mean, billions of years.
That's exactly why we would have the conversation. I'd say those exact words. I said, I can't see how that could be fair or right for anybody, even Hitler. And, even Hitler, I wouldn't want to see him burning on a lake of fire forever and ever and ever and ever. Never mind Godless cranium.
Like,
I was just like, what? Like, no, not him.
My fiance is watching the show Outlander. And there's one scene, I don't actually watch it, but I just happen to be watching, and I'm kind of sad that I was watching it at that point because it's bothered me since. But so there's this guy, colonial guy, I think it was a French Renaissance guy. Anyway, so he has they were oppressing the Irish people, and he's got this Irish guy that he's basically like framed. And he orders him to get 100 lashes, and then after that he orders him to get another 100 lashes, and so he's got him tied to this post, and he says, I'm gonna make you scream, and the Irish guy says, no, you're not, and he like whips him and whips him and whips him, and one of the soldiers just like faints, and it shows like his back just like totally ripped apart, and like when I watched that, I wanted to be that soldier fainting. Like, it was just like horrific. Now, if there was a hell, it would be way worse than that. And and
it'd be forever, and there'd be
forever, and there'd be no Cersei. That guy is not going to die. Like, even if at least that guy, if he's whipped enough, he's going to die, and that would be the end of it, right? But there would be no end for that in hell. To believe in that and to think that that's a moral stance, to me, it blows my mind. I can't even encompass what that means. Like, my mind rebels at the idea of like forever that happening. So yeah, I don't think that's one of the main reasons I don't think Christianity is a moral or an ethical system. I know that there's Christians out there that don't believe in a literal hell. That's fine. I don't know how they come to that conclusion,
What was
especially
like
when
that guy? Remember I commented on that guy's video and I was like, he announced that there's no hell. That
yeah.
Christian guy that you dissed in your video. He's like, there's no hell, guys. There's just no hell. And he's just, I was like, what? He just decides that? Now that's the truth, you know? It was
Yeah,
hilarious.
there's probably workarounds for it, like there is for everything in Christianity, right? Like there's probably reasons why you could come up with that you don't believe in it, but it was definitely for at least the majority of Christianity, that's what they believed for hundreds and thousands of years.
Well,
So
it's the teaching of Christianity.
yeah.
I'm just speculating on the nature of it itself, who
Well,
I think winds up there, and why
yeah.
that it's a lot. The crimes being committed are a lot more intense. You know, if there
Anybody that doesn't believe in it they are the outliers, because the vast majority of Christians throughout time have believed in a literal hell. So,
well, there is a teaching called universalism, which
yeah,
is actually scripturally based as well. It's just different scriptures. You know, there's 3 or 4 that say, you know, God gave all men over to disobedience so that he might have mercy on them all. Now, I'm not saying I'm a universalist, but it's possible, you know.
yeah.
The
Well,
the one thing that Christians do that I don't is that there are some things that are disputed over in the Bible, and there are three or four different ways that you can perceive it to mean. And most Christians decide, okay, that's exactly what it means, and there's no getting over that. And I just don't do that, you know, unless God speaks to me personally and says, look, this is the deal. Then I'll be 100% sure. Do you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
I don't
Well,
base it because there's different ways to read different passages.
yeah. Well, that's
So
why,
I
like,
don't know
if I actually have a conversation with a Christian, I usually ask them what they believe about hell. So, I usually run into either they believe in hell or they believe in what they call a separation from God. And then others believe that you're dead. You don't have an afterlife. You wink
right.
out,
There's the
I guess.
annihilationism. That's a new one that's come up where you burn up and then you become like before you were born. Or you like
Hmm.
instead of burning in hell forever, you burn in hell until you disappear. That's a new one, but that's
Oh,
out
okay.
there too.
Well, there
So
you
there's
go.
like 4 or
That's
5,
horrible
and
as well.
they're all based on scriptures. They're
Yeah.
not based on people's imagination. So
Mhm.
to
Which is which is
dogmatically
another great
decide,
argument against Christianity. It was this
well,
God this
I
God
don't find that
decided to.
I
You don't
don't
think
find that
that?
a great argument against Christianity. But you know, I can understand why I can understand why you use it as an argument against Christianity. Sure, but
Mm.
to me, it was based on personal experience. You know, so it's not what people debate over in the Bible is again academic to me. I think I said this at the beginning. I think about it for a while when it comes up, and I'm like, and I may even study or research it. But until I feel like God speaks to me clearly, this is thus.
Right.
I don't make up my mind. And he's only
Right.
done that like once or twice in my life, and you probably don't believe that he's done that, but once or twice, about 2 or 3 separate things
Well,
that
I
I'm
believe that
dogmatically
you
convinced
believe.
of.
Well, I believe that you
Right.
believe that happened. So
Well,
that's good
that's all.
enough.
That's all we need to have a conversation about. I
Yeah.
believe that you believe. I
Yeah.
believe that
Just
you're,
just like
and I
if
believe
I
that you don't. I believe you're telling me the truth. You are an atheist, and you're not. You know, you're not just. I don't even know where Jordan Peterson was going with that. You know, you're not an atheist,
yeah.
Matt Dillahunty, because then you'd be killing people. Because you'd be killing people, Godless cranium,
Yeah.
if you were
Well,
actually an atheist.
it's like if I was really thirsty and I saw a mirage of a oasis and I said, "Look, I see water over there," and you look and you're like, "There's no water there," but I believe that you believe that there's water there, right? That's basically how I feel about it when somebody says, "Well, I believe that God spoke to me." Well, okay, I don't think that He did, but I think that you believe that, and that's what matters.
What
That's what
was the what was
shapes
the
what you believe.
Didn't you have a period once where you felt like God spoke to you about something, or no? Did I get that wrong?
No, no, I don't think I've ever. I'm trying to think back.
Did you have any experiences that you thought were supernatural at the time?
Just that
Never?
feeling of like comfort that I talked about earlier. I guess you could consider that. I mean, if there was really a supernatural being that was like surrounding me and making me feel good, then that would be a supernatural experience, right?
Would you call
If,
that the peace of God, or was it that closely tied to anything religious, or no?
just basically like what, when I prayed or when I thought about it, thought about
So
like,
it was so it was tied to actual spiritual activity. You felt a sense of
Mhm.
peace.
Yeah,
Okay, so
I
that's
get the
kind of
same
the
sense of,
peace of God, right?
yeah, I get the same kind of peace when I meditate. Um, so
You
it's kind of the same.
meditate now?
Yeah, I
Wait,
always have. Yeah.
wait, that's kind of spiritual. What
Yeah.
are your fans disappointed to hear that? Are they in the are they in the chat?
I
What do
don't
you
think I've
mean? What are
ever.
you meditating?
Well, I learned how to do. I'm not an expert at it, but I learned how to do it when I was in martial arts. So we would, when I was a kid, we would meditate, and we would do it. I think it was in kung fu. It was a stance called horse stance. So basically, it's your like legs apart and slightly bent, and your hands at your sides in fists. And my teacher would come behind us with like a bamboo stick and whack us on the back of the leg. And if you were meditating properly, then you didn't
You
really
didn't
take
even
notice
feel
of
it,
it. Right. Yeah.
and it
Um,
worked.
yeah,
It
it
worked
works.
with
Yeah.
you,
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and it wasn't root. Was it's not rooted in a spiritual teaching?
No, it's just basically focusing on one. When I first started, we would focus on a sound. So it might be like, say, a car passing outside the dojo, and you would try to listen to that sound for as long as possible. And you just kind of like, I don't want to say leave your body, but you lose that sense of being your body. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know a good way of explaining it to you.
So
That
you
doesn't sound
took.
crazy.
So are you accomplished at martial arts? You're a badass.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to fight in tournaments and stuff.
Awesome. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I knew there was this dude I knew in Radio Shack once, this Asian guy who I'll tell a brief version of the story because it was so funny. I used to say this thing where I go like, hey, you ever get in any fights? It's just something I'd just throw out there just to see how it would land. And I was like, so, you ever been in any fights? The guy looks at me with this weird, crazy grin. And he's like, dude, I've been in hundreds of fights. I was like, what? It turned out he'd been like in Asian street gangs. And totally like, he was like a computer nerd comic book guy as far as I was concerned. When he said that, I noticed him differently because he was about my height. He's about 6 feet, and he was pretty stocky. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. And it totally blew my mind. And he'd been in all these, he'd been in an Asian street gang. He used to live in San Francisco. And he'd been like hundreds of fights, and he took karate, and he was like it was crazy. But anyways, sorry, just thought of that. Did you read Sam Harris? Do you read his books at all?
Yeah.
Did you read the one on Buddhism?
Which one's that?
I forget. I just read it. It's about his meditation and spiritual without God or something like that. It's called. It's about him meditating and training with different.
Oh yeah, I did that. Yeah, I have read that. Yeah. I think I've read all of Sam Harris's books. I'm not sure. I'm a pretty big fan of his. He kind of speaks my language.
Could he be gotten on your show, or is he too out of reach?
He's too big, I think. Yeah, I'd love
because
to have
he's
him
met
on the
with
show.
Matt Dillahunty. I mean, you're not that far from getting someone like Matt Dillahunty because he's been on Sequiturs.
Yeah, I think Sam's on a different level. I have to level up my atheism for that. But
yeah,
maybe
well,
one day.
let's get it started. Let's get it started. You guys are on the path towards like I said, taking over the world for atheism. Because his book is about spirituality, spiritual training, like you just described, but without God involved.
Right.
And it sounds like that's what you just described.
Yeah, I think there's something to what Sam's saying. I think I think it's a hard topic because a lot of atheists buck at the idea of spirituality. I think the word,
That's why I'm asking, because it's even that alone is probably controversial somewhere,
yeah,
somehow.
I think the
Go ahead.
word itself is kind of um, been tainted by religion. Uh, so like I hate when people talk about like when they say spiritual because I don't know what they mean, right? For if I'm talking to a Christian, then they probably mean, supernatural stuff. But if I'm talking to an atheist, then they probably mean, it could be anything from like, wow, I had a transcendent experience from eating this beautifully tasting ice cream, right? To that feeling you get when you I've been standing in a forest and you just like look up at the sky and you see all the stars and you think about how small you are, and then it just kind of like hits you like how minuscule we are in the big scheme of things. That could be
Right.
thought of as a spiritual experience. Like I said, like
Yeah,
my
absolutely.
meditating could
Absolutely.
be a
Yeah, but
spiritual
that's why I'm asking, because before I became a Christian, I was an agnostic sort of, but I kind of sort of believed in God, but I was checking out all sorts of different spiritual, I read like the Tao Te Ching and the Bhagavad Gita and like all sorts of stuff like that. I was kind of interested in New Age. And so you didn't go through a period where you were deconverting, where you were questing in any way, checking out spiritual stuff. Or
Yeah, I did.
did
Yeah,
you?
I did. Yeah, I
Okay.
did.
So
Yeah.
anything that resonated is the question. And how does meditation play in? This is the first time anybody learned that you meditated, right?
Yeah, I think so.
You're gonna be
'Cause
in trouble. Take it.
I don't usually talk about that stuff. Uh, like, I don't know. That's a hard question because, like, I've read the Quran, I've read the
Oh,
Christian
you
Bible. I've read,
did.
yeah,
How was that? How'd that go?
um,
I've never tried
it's
that one.
a pretty horrible book, uh, kind of like the Bible. But like I said before, you can kind of like go through any of those books and pick out parts. I've read a lot about Buddhism and stuff like that. But I've even like read about Satanism and like LaVeyan Satanism stuff. I did a video on it,
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. I'm
stuff
just
like
kidding.
that. But like I could go look at LaVeyan Satanism and pick out things in it that I would agree with, and then there's a bunch of stuff I don't agree with. Right? Like I don't agree with the selfish nature of LaVeyan Satanism, for instance. It
Right.
doesn't resonate with me. I don't think that's a good way. I don't think that's a good way forward for our species. Like I don't think people
Well,
can
what
just
about something like the Tao Te Ching, which is more like generally spiritual? It's
yeah
not.
like those kinds of things. And even like ancient philosophers and stuff like that, like Aristotle and stuff like that. Like there's like a lot of stuff that even if it's like it's hard to explain. Like even like how Jordan Peterson talks about like, and then an atheist say, well, it's not true. In certain contexts, you can look at stuff like that and say, well, it's not true what they're saying. Like for instance, I forget what the philosopher's name was, but they used to believe that magnets had souls because they would attract each other, right?
Right.
Or push each other away. So at the time, they didn't understand what it was. So they were like, hey, these things have souls. That's why this happens, right? Now, obviously, that's wrong. But they didn't know that at the time. And it brought the conversation to another level, right? So they went from like, hey, this is just an inert piece of rock to, hey, these things have souls and they attract or push each other away, right? And then so the next
Right.
step is, why do they do that, right? And then so it, I think religion in a way was kind of like a stepping stone that got us to our current understanding, and that's why I don't think we need. And it's kind of like, do we can build skyscrapers now? We used to be able to, it started out building mud huts. Do we still need to live and build mud huts? No, we don't need to anymore. But if like civilization was destroyed tomorrow, right, and there's only a handful of humans left, I think we would probably go through the same process, right? Like at some point we would adopt some kind of belief in an afterlife and to make us feel better, and we would start believing in gods, and it would probably it might look slightly different. There might be different gods and all that kind of stuff, but some of us would be worshiping the sun, and some of us would make up Odins and Jesus is.
So I'm not entirely sure. Are you saying that for like, so in terms of exploring other spiritual traditions or checking out the ideas, are you trying to say that it's something that you've decided isn't useful or isn't?
No, I think it's
I'm
useful.
not really sure.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it's useful. Yeah, no, I definitely think it's useful. I think it's useful to.
So I'm not sure what you were saying with what you were
No,
getting at.
I think it's a good idea, and that there's like ideas in those texts, including Christianity, that could be useful, right? Like if you're thinking about it, and at the very least, a big portion of the population believes in Christianity, so it's a good idea to try to understand
to know what it's about.
Right? And you can say that about all those, right? And historically, right? Like I can't say the name of the Bhagavad Gita or whatever. There's a big segment of the population that believes in that stuff, right? And draw, or at least they draw something from it, right? So yeah, I think it's a great idea to explore other, all faiths or other faiths or other ways of thinking.
So you never took comparative religion at college or anything like that?
No, I did not. No.
Okay. And what about Joseph Campbell? Did you read any of that type of stuff? You'd probably be interested in that.
Yeah, I read the book, the Book of Mormon.
Power of Myth.
And
no, not Joseph Smith. Joseph Campbell.
Oh, Joseph Campbell. I don't know if I've read Joseph Campbell.
Did you read the Book of Mormon? You read the Book of Mormon? Wow.
Yeah, I read the Book of Mormon. Yeah, I've read the Bible a bunch of times, actually. So yeah, basically, yeah. So I think that's a good idea. I think it's a good idea to like read and learn about.
Educate yourself. Educate yourself is always the right thing to do. That's what you would say.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, yeah, I would say that it's a good idea.
All right, I think we're gonna wrap this up because it's almost been 2 hours. I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, basically.
This has been cool. So here's gonna be I think we'll have an open door policy. I thought this was really fun. It was really kind of almost exactly how I thought it would go. So if you want to come back on, you let me know, and I'll, it'll be just like that. It'll be open door. My casa es su casa. And if you want to chat about something or whatever, just let me know, and we'll do this again relatively soon. I would say a couple of weeks. Does that sound good?
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay, so you want to wrap it up and say goodbye? And
yeah, sure. Thanks for watching.
Tell people where they can find you. And
on my channel, Godless Cranium, my Twitter at @can_atheist, or you could just search for Godless Cranium on there, and I have a Discord channel. All the links to all my social media stuff is in the description box of my videos. So you can check me out anywhere you want.
Got to get an Instagram page. I saw your Instagram page of one picture.
Do I have an Instagram? I didn't even know I had one.
Yeah, you do. I looked up
Yeah.
Godless Cranium. I think it's one photo of your symbol. Are you selling T-shirts of your symbol now? You patented symbol, right?
I do have a T-shirt with my symbol on it. Yeah, I didn't even know the Jesus. There you go. I didn't know that I had an Instagram page. I guess I should probably do something with that at some point. I can't keep up.
Selling T-shirts. It's a really, because like someone like Atheist Girl and Godless Mom, I think they have something like 20,000 on their Instagram followers, and it's much easier to get followers on Instagram. And then it's probably a good way to sell your T-shirts because you can sell them direct.
Well, there you go.
Someone's like,
this conversation was definitely worth it now because I
might have made you $100 a week, 100 extra bucks a week because
I am not good on social media. Like I'm pretty good on Twitter. I spend time there, but I don't have the time to spend doing anything besides kind of making videos. So
yeah, the time is the option. If you had time
if I was Drew, then I could be doing all that stuff.
Get Shannon to do it. Command Shannon to do it. Can you do that?
I don't think anybody commands Shannon to do anything.
But, even you? Aren't you like, isn't it your channel? It's like, Shannon, order you to
it's Shannon's
T-shirts.
Channel. I just show up.
Yeah, actually, I kind of figured that. All right, my friend. So this was as good as it gets. I thought this conversation was really cool and very laid back as I thought it would be. And informative. People even learned that the Godless Cranium meditates. You heard it here today, people. Yeah, that's going to be controversial in the days to come, but he meditates. You heard it yourself.
Yeah,
So,
spiritual.
are you a Christian now?
Definitely
No.
not.
No? No?
No.
All right. I didn't win him over, people, but I'm still trying. I'm still in the fight. All right, my friend. So, anything else you want to say before we wrap it up?
Nope, that's
Any
it.
question in the chat? Anybody say anything in the chat? Or are they all gone? They left.
I don't. Wait one sec. Sai said, "Did you find anything spiritual in the martial arts?" No, not really. Again,
Causing other people pain is a
yeah,
spiritual experience.
yeah. I
You
guess
can-
again, it depends on how you would define spiritual. But yeah, but Sai, definitely we'll have to have you on Heathen Hour as well. I've been a fan of your interviews. I've watched a couple.
Yeah,
Good.
size fun. All right,
Yeah.
kids. So you heard it. 2 hours of the Godless Cranium. This is the only place you can get this. Insights galore. And
Yeah.
we'll have him back on very soon. Actually, Drew is going to be on the show on Monday. So
Beautiful.
line up your questions.
Awesome.
All right, my friend.
All right. Thank
We
you.
will sign off. Thank you.
Take care.
Take care. Let me shut it. Oh, you